Hi everybody, I'm Craig, and today we're talking about day 2 of trig equations. We already solved linear equations yesterday, as well as those that were factorable. Today we're going to work on ones that are not factorable. Just a little reminder here, just a little flow chart to kind of give you some help on what to think about as you're doing each one of these problems. Just to help you in case you're struggling on what strategy to apply here. Had to make sure I got my calculator because we're going to need it today. And I hope that you've already done your warm-up, which you had a similar question, which was 3x squared minus 5x minus 4. And we saw that it wasn't factorable, so we had to go ahead and do the quadratic formula. So again, I'm going to do the quadratic formula. So I have negative 5 plus or minus the square root negative 5 squared minus 4 times 3 times negative 4, all divided by 2 times 3. Because your A value is 3, your B value is negative 5, and your C value is negative 4. Your formula is right here if you need it, if you don't remember from Algebra 2. Clean it up, so we have 5 plus or minus the square root of negative 5 squared is 25. A minus and a minus makes a plus. 4 times 3 is 12, times 4 is 48. And then we divide by 6. I can go ahead and add up in my radical. So I have 5 plus or minus the square root of 73 divided by 6. And this is the simplified radical solution. This is what is very useful to us in algebra, but not so much in trig. Because in algebra, I had x's in my formula, which meant that x equals this value here. However, I don't have x's in my formula. I have cosine. So I need to find out what that actually equals. And to do so, I'm going to go to my calculator. In order to find out, I need to first type the 5, and then I'm going to do the square root here. So I have 5, and I'm going to do the positive version first, plus, then I'm going to type 73 square root and hit enter. So now I'm looking at about 13.54. And then I'm going to say divided by 6. And so the plus version here, it gives me 2.257. And that's my approximate value. All right, now I'm going to do the negative. So I have 5 minus 73. Take a square root and hit enter. Divided by 6. So my other value is negative 0.59067. Like we've talked about before, I'm going to write down the approximate values, but I'm going to use the long decimal still in my calculator when I go through to do my calculations. As I touched on before, if this were algebra, I would have x's equal to those values. I don't have x's, I have cosine. So I know that cosine of theta is going to equal 2.257, and I know that cosine of theta is going to equal negative 0.59067. When you're looking to solve these, remember the question is asking for degrees, so make sure your calculator is in degrees. This one should look a little funny because cosine goes between negative 1 to 1. There's actually no place that it's going to equal 2 or anything more than 2. So this is not possible. It does not give you a solution. This first part is not possible. It does not give you any solution at all. Now over here, cosine equals negative 0.59067. This one does give you a solution, and we're going to work on that one. So here, again, make sure your calculator's in degrees, and we have the whole decimal on the calculator, and I'm going to use second cosine to get my answer. And my calculator tells me that theta equals 126.20 degrees. And that's awesome because cosine is negative, and I see very clearly that this is in the second quadrant. But think ahead. Remember, cosine can be negative in 2 places. It can be negative in the second quadrant and the third quadrant. Very good. All right, so I can plot this to show you what I have. I have 126.20 degrees, and I can find my reference angle. I'm going to find my reference angle by taking 180 and subtracting 126.2. That gives me 53.8 degrees. So if I want to know where the angle is in the third quadrant, I know again that the reference angle is 53.8 degrees. And if I want to know the entire angle, I'm going to add 180 degrees to that. So I'm going to say 180 degrees plus 53.8 And that gives me my second theta of 233.80 degrees. Those are my two answers. I know I have two answers because cosine is negative in two places, so I must include both. All right, we're going to go ahead and do number 2 here. Number 2 is very similar. It is not factorable. We're going to have to go ahead and do the quadratic formula. And since it's not equal to 0, we need to start by getting it equal to 0. So, 4 sine squared theta minus 2 sine of theta minus 3 equals 0. My a value is 4, my b value is negative 2, my c value is negative 3. So I have negative 2 plus or minus the square root negative 2 squared minus 4 times negative 3, all divided by 2 times 4. This now gives me 2 plus or minus the square root of 4. A minus and a minus makes a positive. 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 3 is 48. All divided by 8. I can go ahead and add up what's in my radical. So I wind up with 2 plus or minus the square root of 52 divided by 8. Now 52 is not a prime number. 73 was a prime number before. It didn't break down, but 52 breaks down. So 52 breaks down into 2 times 26, which is 2 times 13. So a 2 is going to come out of my radical, which means I can further simplify my answer and write 2 plus or minus the square root of 13 divided by 8. Notice, I wrote this a little funny. Let me fix that here. I have 2 plus or minus 2 square roots of 13 divided by 8. Now I have a 2, and an 8. They all have a 2 in common, so I'm going to go ahead and divide through. So I have I have easy numbers to put into my calculator. So that gives me 1 plus or minus the square root of 13 divided by 4. And just like before, I'm going to go ahead and get the decimal answers. So I have 1 plus 13, take the square root, hit equals, divided by 4. I wind up with 1.1534. And for the negative, I have 1 minus 13 and the square root, hit enter, divided by 4. And it gives me negative 0.651387819. Okay, I got a little excited and I wrote the whole number. Sorry about that. Before I even set these equal to sine, it should occur to me, is sine ever greater than 1? No, sine is never equal to a number greater than 1, which means this one is not going to give me an answer. I don't even have to worry about setting it up. If you want to, you're welcome to. You're welcome to write sine of theta equals 1.1514 and then write not possible underneath. If that helps you to remember that it doesn't work, that's fine. If you can just look at it and know that it doesn't work, I don't have to see this on your paper. It's no big deal. For the other one, I'm going to say sine of theta equals negative 0.651387819. I figure I might as well write the whole thing. I already did it once. Again, I'm in degrees because the problem specified. So my calculator's in degrees, and I'm going to hit second sine. And my calculator tells me that my theta is negative 40.65 degrees. Now think about this answer clearly. We've talked about sine inverse and how its range is from negative pi over 2 to pi over 2 or negative 90 to 90. That's why your calculator returned a negative angle to you. But look at the question. The question specifically says between 0 and 360 degrees. Is this between 0 and 360 degrees? No, it is not on my interval. So, can I come up with a coterminal angle? Do you remember how to come up with a coterminal angle? That's right, you add 360 degrees. So I'm going to add 360 degrees to this answer just to get a coterminal angle in my range. So that means I'm going to say plus 360 on my calculator, and that means I get theta equals 319.35 degrees. That is one of my answers. Now, how come I said one of my answers? All right, because sine is negative, and I know sine is negative in two places. It is negative in the fourth quadrant, and in the third quadrant. So just like on the last problem, I'm going to go ahead and I am going to come over here and find my reference angle. Sorry, I'm having a little trouble with the board. Now it told me one of my angles was negative 40.65 degrees. Well, that's really nice because that actually tells me my reference angle. So when I go to plot it in the third quadrant, I know that my reference angle again is going to be 40.65 degrees. So to find that angle, I'm going to say 180 plus 40.65. So 180 degrees plus 40.65 degrees, and that gives me theta equals 220.65 degrees. Those are my two answers. I know I have two because there are two places that sine is negative. Sine is negative in the fourth quadrant, and sine is negative in the third quadrant.